Greetings to my Malaysian Studies lecturer, Mr. Abdul Jalani, and to whoever is listening. Me, Philip Goh, together with my comrades, Rasul, Myrat, Ching Yee, Mohhan, and Shiba, will be making a short presentation on the formation of Malaysia. For my part, I'll be doing the idea of Malaysia. The idea of unifying the countries in the region with Malaya had been brought up time and time again in history. The idea did not just occur to the Southeast Asian leaders but the British as well. The British cabinet had been discussed the issue in 1888 and subsequently more seriously in 1931 after the British successfully controlled the 9 Malay states as well as Sarawak and British Borneo. The rationale behind the proposal was the desire to protect British interests. At the local level, the idea of unification had been voiced by David Marshall, who suggested that Singapore unite with Malaya in 1955. The idea of coalition was also sounded by Ghazali Shafi and Tan Cheng Lock. In 1959, Lee Kuan Yew said Singapore and Malaya should join together. Tunku Abdul Rahman had voiced the same idea as early as 1955 during the UMNO conference. He invited Singapore to join Malaya and by the same token obtain independence. 6 months later, the idea was developed by Tunku when he stated his readiness to accept not just Singapore but also Sarawak, Brunei and British North Borneo after they had obtained their independence and they should join voluntarily. Tunku's thinking at that point was seemingly to test the situation without directing or giving any assurance whatsoever, but various reactions were felt. While the British responded positively, the opposite also happened. Ahmad M. Azari of Brunei and Ahmad Bois Tamam of Malaya, for example, issued different proposals of unification. Political analysts viewed Tunku's magnanimity as reflecting the wisdom of a leader in planning a major revamp. Later in 1959, the leader of People's Action Party in Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, suggested the incorporation of Singapore into the Federation of Malaya. The two important reasons for his proposal were to achieve independence and to eradicate communist influence in Singapore. Tunku Abdul Rahman and the Federation of Malaya government rejected Lee Kuan Yew's proposal because of fear of social and economic problems arising from racial imbalance. However, Tunku Abdul Rahman felt that the incorporation would have to be made in due time. He proposed that the Borneo states, Sabah, Sarawak and Brunei be included. On 27 May 1961, a dinner gathering for Southeast Asian journalists in Singapore, Tunku revealed his aspiration to form Malaysia. Tunku outlined clearly the benefits that could be jointly enjoyed by all members of the country. It was the first time Tunku presented a proposal with serious commitment, and he was also better prepared for it. Prior to that, Tunku had several meetings with important leaders, including Lee Kuan Yew. Sinu Abdul Rahman discussed the outcome of his survey in Sabah, Sarawak, and Brunei, and with Macmillan in London. The proposal for formation of Malaysia drew various reactions from the British government, foreign leaders and even local leaders and citizens in Malay Peninsula. Tunku himself continued to popularize the proposal at certain official functions. The idea to unite Malaysia with neighboring countries was raised several times. Mergers of Singapore suggested in 1955 by David Marshall but was rejected by Tunku Abdul Rahman. Lee Kuan Yew proposed the idea again in 1959 but received unfavorable response. Within a few months after Tunku's suggestion, neighboring countries manifested serious interest and supported the idea of unification. On 27 May 1961, Tunku Abdul Rahman suggested the merger of Malaya with Singapore, North Borneo, or in other terms Sabah, Sarawak, and Brunei. Brunei, British North Borneo, Sabah, Sarawak, and Singapore finally followed up with action. For almost 2 years, these countries communicated and consulted. Problems of every kind were encountered. Confusion prevailed not just at the grassroots level, but also at the level of government. Nonetheless, the spirit to unite prevailed. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rezaei, and I will discuss the factors that contributed towards the formation of Malaysia. First of all, I will discuss about the collective fight against the communism. So, Malaya was constantly exposed to the communists before threat, even though the emergency was over. Brunei was also facing the spread of communism, while Singapore was worried that they might face the same problem. In Singapore, the communists had successfully infiltrated political parties and trade unions. If the communism gained control of the island, the peace and security of Malaya would be jeopardized. Lee Kuan Yew and his PAP party felt through the merger with Malaya would enable Singapore to gain independence from British immediately. The British were concerned about the problem for the sake of British investments in Southeast Asia. The task of fighting communism would definitely be greater for a country to do it alone. And second is independence through unification. Malaya was free from any outside power after its independence on 31st August 1957. The other four countries like Brunei, Sabah, Sarawak, and Singapore were still under British command. The entry into Malaysia would be enable Brunei, Sabah, Sarawak, and Singapore become independent of the British government. The case of freedom through unification was a primary factor for the future member countries. And third one is ethnic balance and unity. Tunku wanted a Malaysian federation, a large union encompassing Brunei, Sabah, Sarawak, and Singapore, to ensure the preservation of ethnic balance. Maintaining a balance between non-Bumiputras and Bumiputras would ensure peace and stability in the region. Most of the leaders in the prospective member states accepted the challenge of unifying the diversified cultural heritage with one entity under a strong central government. And next, I will discuss about economic cooperation. In this context, each country had a certain resources that could be developed to the benefit of both the country and the central government. The economic potential in the state could be further developed. Examples is like Singapore international trade, industry and tourism, Brunei oil products. For Sabah and Sarawak it's forestry products. For Malaya it's mineral and agricultural products. Next I will explain about United in International Relations. Kuala Lumpur wanted to reinforce the pact among the regional countries so that they would not only be stronger internally but also in the international arena as well. Ties between a country and other foreign nations were still not well regulated. Thus, if the countries within the plan were to unite under one government and political system, their position as one new nation would be stronger in the international area. Tunku mentioned this in his speech at the press conference on 27 May in 1961. Next, I want to discuss about the understanding for development. Under one strong central administration, development of existing potential in any country would be easy. After 5 years of independence, Kuala Lumpur could use its experience as a multiracial country to help develop the countries within the Malaysia. It's all from me. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Ching Yee. Now I will continue with the part reactions towards the idea of the formation of Malaysia. First, Singapore. Lee Kuan Yew was interested with formation of Malaysia. However, there were certain other parties in Singapore who were doubtful of Malaysia's stability. Initially, People of Singapore and People Actions Party (PAP) gave their fully support, but political changes appeared in early 1961. PAP, under relationship of Lee Kuan Yew, received oppositions from the United People's Party (UPP), which has broken away from PAP and become Socialist Party. UPP's political aims was to bring independence to Singapore through some other ways and use a different ideology. During that time, PAP lost during the Hong Lim and An Soon constituency by-elections. The defeat occurs because of a left-wing PAP group switched sides and gave its support to a Labour Party candidate. Okay, now I'll continue with Brunei. People in Brunei did not agree to join Malaysia. Many of them prefer to be independent on their own first. Initially, Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin, Sultan of Brunei, himself was very interested and considered Malaysia a good idea. However, His Highness faced strong oppositions from Ali and Muhammad Azahari, leader of Brunei People Party. Azahari wanted to bring Brunei into another organization by uniting with British. North Borneo and Sarawak, under the name of North Kalimantan, oppositions from Azahari culminated into a form of armed rebellion that was ultimately quelled by Sultan and with the help of the British. Now, Sabah and Sarawak. The reaction of people in Sabah and Sarawak was most encouraging. They were aware that the country's participations in Malaysia would mean they would be free from British imperialism. They believed that the communist threat that was becoming very worrying would be more easier overcome under one new government. They were also aware that the population structure will be different in the new country. However, they were also anxious about losing their position by Malay dominations. The non-Malays especially were afraid of being discriminated. They feared that the state of their religion and language would be threatened. Chinese were afraid that they would be flooded with economic competitions from Chinese Singapore counterparts. Now, I will continue with Malaya. The Malaysia concept was generally accepted, but there were also people who thought differently. Before 1951, UMNO leaders often weighed the advantage and disadvantages to Malaya and Malays if united with Singapore through Malaysia. However, when entry of Sabah and Sarawak were taken into account, the worry over Malay interests, especially in terms of population number, minimized. Another group in Malaya was strongly against the formation of Malaysia was the Malayan Islamic Parties (PAS). that was against the idea of Malaysia. Past leader claims the Malay would lose out if Malaysia was established. Instead, they prefer to Maphilindo concept, which combine Malaya, Philippines, and Indonesia. Now I will pass my floor to Mohhan.
Hello, I am Mohan. I'll be presenting about steps taken toward formation of Malaysia. Okay, the first step will be the harmony encouraged to Sabah and Sarawak by Tunku. Tunku wanted the people to understand the merging concept. However, Sarawak United People's Party, Sarawak People's Party, and Barisan Rakyat Jati Sarawak expressed opposition. And also Donald Stephens, who was the leader of United Nations Katazan organization, rejected the idea publicly, even when Tunku promised to give considerable autonomy to lead. Next will be the visit to Brunei in July 1961. A.M. Azahari and his party not interested in the merging idea, even when Sultan formed special committee to access public's opinion. Next, a conference was held in Singapore on August 1961, where they was decided the conference would be. Then, a conference is held in Singapore on August 96, where it's decided by the people. There, Singapore holds the autonomy powers in education and labor, and the central government responsible for defense and internal security. That referendum showed that more than 70% of people agreed to merge. Next, in the middle of 1961, Malaysia's Solidarity Consultative Committee was formed when most Borneo's leaders expressed skepticism. The meeting was held to relate true intention and reasons of merging. It received strong support from people. Next, in November 1961, a meeting, Borneo States, was held. The meeting is to discuss Borneo's status as British colony. It was to assess the people's reaction towards the merging idea. It is still to widen English-Malaya Defence Treaty to protect Southeast Asia from communism threats. The proposal was to assist to review Sultan Brunei's opinion and to maintain British military base in Singapore. Next, in July 1962, it was the Malaysia's pre-agreement in London. The objective was to resolve the differences in Malayan and British reports to the Cobalt Commission. The effect was adjusted. Malaysia's proposal was generally accepted by people. Next was the formation of Cobalt Commission in August 1962. It was formed to assess the feelings of Sabahans and Sarawakians. The committee was consisted of 2 British and 2 Malaysians, and it was found that 70% of the people accepted the idea. Next, in August 1962, Inter-Government Committee was formed to plan the legislative of the new country. It was headed by Lord Lansdowne. It analysed the important matters, and the report was accepted by committee as basis to formulate Malaysia. Singapore's last referendum was made. Amidst of the opposition, PAP restored people's confidence in merging by mentioning these matters. They promised the people not losing status as citizenship, and a better international economic prospects, and easier to curb communist threats. And this referendum showed 70% accepted the merging. Next, in June 1963, United Nations mission took place. It was to assess the acceptance of the Sabahans and Sarawakians. There, Tunku met President Sukarno and President Macapagal to explain the idea. He convinced them, and the people agreed and accepted the idea. The referendum reflected the positive reaction from the people, and it authenticated the Cobalt's report. And finally, in July 1963, the Malaysian government agreement was signed by all 4 countries, including Britain. The agreement was sealed, and now Malaysia, a new nation, was born, proclaimed on 16 September 1963. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Shiva, and I'm going to continue with formation of Malaysia and its obstacles. The first one is Brunei. The Sultan of Brunei suddenly lost interest for his country to join Malaysia, and Brunei didn't become a member of Malaysia. Brunei's claims that were said to be the condition for joining touched on the following issues: the number of seats in the legislature and in parliament, the control on oil and other minerals, monetary autonomy, Brunei's earlier investment, method of taxation, authority in the area of education and welfare, matters of religion, citizenship, the security of Brunei, and the position of Sultan and the status of Brunei within Malaysia. Three matters remained unsolved: the position of Sultan of Brunei within the Council of Malay rulers, the status of Brunei within Malaysia, and the matter of finance, which hinges on the issue of royalty from oil involving the formula for payment. So later, the request to be appointed as the first young di Pertuan Agong was turned down, and he was accorded the last placing after 9 other rulers. Although the several conditions were fulfilled, the Sultan decided not to sign the agreement. It was a loss for Peninsular Malaysia and London. The second one is Philippines. The Philippines were against the formation of Malaysia, while Indonesia tried to prevent its formation and immediately became hostile to Malaysia after the new country was established. President Macapagal claimed Sabah was originally a part of Filipino territory. The formation of Malaysia thus complicated his effort to claim Sabah. As an indication of his objection to the formation of Malaysia, Macapagal broke off diplomatic ties between the Philippines and Malaysia. The next is Indonesia. Indonesia's opposition to Malaysia was more serious. Failing to influence Malaya, President Sukarno launched a confirmation policy against Malaya on 20 January 1963. Sukarno's grounds for opposing the formation of Malaysia was because Kuala Lumpur had ignored Indonesia in Malaysia's plan to set up a new country, while Indonesia was a neighbor and friend to Malaya. Sukarno also claimed Malaysia to be a new kind of political structure that would ignore Indonesia's interests and weaken the spirit of the Malay archipelago. In 1965, Sukarno was overthrown, replaced by General Suharto. In August 1966, peace agreement was signed between Malaysia and Indonesia. And the last one is Singapore. Various internal events occurred and affect Singapore's stand regarding her membership in Malaysia. The attitude of Lee Kuan Yew and PAP in general was interpreted by MCA and UMNO as a PAP tactic for taking over the rule of MCA in protecting the interests of the Chinese community. Indeed, the first Malaysian general election campaign was an event that brought serious repercussions. On 27 April 1965, Singapore announced a convention to form a united opposition front with the aim to fight for equality of rights. Subsequently, Lee Kuan Yew started his Malaysia for Malaysians campaign, underlining that no community in Malaysia was more native than other communities. Efforts were made time and again from June to August to find a solution. All attempts failed because Singapore continued to make the situation worse. Finally, on 7 August 1965, Lee and Tunku signed the separation agreement. On 9 August 1965, Parliament passed the Separation Act. With that, Singapore officially left Malaysia. Thank you. With that, I would end our short presentation about formation of Malaysia. Thank you for listening.